Hi, I'm Sharon Landon and welcome back to Old Asian Lady. Today my guest is Karen Chung. She is originally from Minnesota and has been living in Taiwan for over 40 years. She is a retired professor at the National Taiwan University where she taught English, linguistics, and phonetics with specialization in listening skills, pronunciation, and poetry. Karen speaks English, Mandarin, German, and Spanish. We chat about her journey here to Taiwan and the changes that she's seen over the years, her career work at NTU, Taiwan's English education system, and the development of her English language app. She shares her reflections on marriage, children, retirement, aging, and being single.
I retired after 30 years. We had a couple tough spots there, but overall, it was like my dream career. Yeah.
Well, what would you say that your legacy would be then for your time there at the university?
Okay, so I'd already taught language before, so I taught German in high school. I taught Chinese in Hawaii. I had, taught other things. So I thought and I also majored in linguistics. So I thought I knew what I was doing. I was pretty confident, and I go in there. And I found that my students were asking stuff I didn't have answers to. And then one big blind spot I found was pronunciation. It's like their pronunciation all had similar problems, and it was often just totally wrong. Now, a common example I use is compound noun stress. So for example, I just went to the convenience store. But we don't say convenience store, we say convenience store. There's a whole set of rules that governs when you have a noun modifying another noun that you don't stress the noun that was modified. So not convenience store, it's convenience store. And so that's an example of one thing there. And then they had problems with vowels, and sometimes the words that they meant to say came out as swear words and they weren't aware of it. So I felt that I'd found my niche. Other people were really not paying attention to pronunciation or listening skills in addition, and they're related. So that's where I found my niche, and I ended up teaching phonetics. And so I'd been teaching for some years. One semester, we got a letter from our chair, says, the university now wants to create a lot of online courses. If you are willing to make your course into an online course, get in touch, and we'll give you support. We'll have people come and film the course, and we'll give you TAs, etc. So I thought, I'm not getting any younger. That was in 2012. 2012. So since I'm not getting any younger, if I don't do it now, it's not going to be any better. If I wait, I might as well. And so I went ahead, got one of my really strong students to be my TA plus a couple others, and they took care of all the details of the filming and everything, and it's online now for free.
Yeah, so 2012, I mean, it was another...
That was a while ago.
Yeah, I'm just thinking though, at the time, was it a thing to have courses online?
It was just starting up.
Just starting up.
So the internet
seems like you're always in the forefront of things happening.
Not quite, but my son is a senior software engineer, and he often pushed me. One day he said, Mom, you need a website. I go, yeah. And he says, next week I'll teach you. So in 3 weekends, my son taught me, and I had a website ready for the class because of my son.
Oh, so you just put your curriculum together and you taped because actually I went online and I saw you have a whole slew
2 semesters
of courses and things. And you said it's all free.
It's all free. So if people want to learn this stuff that I've been teaching, you can just get it. I get a lot of mail from mainland China, especially from Sichuan. And I said, why is that? And somebody said, well, you have a fan in Sichuan, and he shared it with a lot of other people. But not just Sichuan, I get a lot of mail from people who are learning from it in China. And 3 different people said, I'd like to write subtitles for it because I can't understand everything. A lot of people can't catch everything because I did half in English and half in Chinese. So they did all the subtitles for me.
Yeah, that's interesting because you just mentioned that you did it teaching part in English and part in Chinese.
A mixture, yeah.
Yeah, so many times when people are teaching English, from what I hear, or schools or bushi bands or whatever that want you to teaching English, they're like, no Chinese, only speak English. But for your work, it was really necessary to be able to do that, or it was your choice in how you taught?
First of all, the university, I think, has always encouraged using English to teach or using a mixture. And you have to write on your course sheet when you apply for a new course at the beginning of the semester if it's going to be in Chinese and English or a mixture. So they have always supported it. Whatever you do is fine. Of course, they encourage English. But a mixture, actually, in my opinion, is best. I totally disagree with that idea of do everything in English, don't do it in Chinese.
Yeah.
To be honest now, to be frank, I think it's a lot of foreign teachers who don't know Chinese. They say, I don't use any Chinese in class. Well, it's because your Chinese isn't that great.
Right, right.
Because a lot of times you just need to know what is the word in Chinese and they'll get it right away. If you describe it and describe it, they may have a wrong idea. They may think of something related, but they don't know if it's really what you're trying to get across to them. If you tell it to them in Chinese, they know right away and we move on.
Yeah.
It's really a waste of time. The time when you should have all Chinese is when you're practicing on your own. Find a language exchange and then speak only in English.
Right.
It's not for teaching. In the classroom, you need both.
That's interesting. Yeah. I remember a few years ago when I was wanting to teach improv, junior improv in English, just for kids so that they could get out of what they were brought up in terms of behavior and being able to speak English and think in English, or the system here is not that great for that. But I would find out that I had to speak some in Chinese because there were these kids that didn't understand the exercises that how to do the exercises that I wanted them to do, because we did a lot of games and things to make it more fun for them. And I remember the principal of the school, she came one time and she had heard me speaking or explaining to them in Chinese just so that they can participate. Because if you're in an improv class and you can't participate because you don't understand what you're supposed to do, then it doesn't do much of anything.
Then you're setting them up for failure.
Yeah.
And you don't gain anything by that.
Yeah. So anyway, she didn't like that, so never went back to that school. But yeah, I think it really is important to use double languages, and I think the concept of learning English in Taiwan, I feel like so many kids that I've met, even young people, when they talk about learning English in school, it was not something that was fun. It was not something that they retained because it wasn't the purpose. They just studied, learned it, and passed the test. That is it. And why so many of them can't really retain their language at this point.
It has one problem. And if you solved that one problem, you could fix English in Taiwan starting tomorrow.
And what is that?
There's no sound.
Okay, so back to what you're trying to do, right?
I found that they had almost no English input at all, especially quality English. They maybe had not so good pronunciation from their teachers, who you can't blame them completely, because going back to the Japanese era, a lot of people did not have access to recordings and other things. So people still have a Japanese accent in there, like elo, efu. That's from Japanese.
Yeah,
Because way back, that means that they were just used to not having resources and just doing it one way, and then that became entrenched. And they're still doing it now. Not 100%, but basically the method has not changed, and that's why the English doesn't improve much. If they added in listening, and with listening, of course, comes speaking, it would start getting better immediately. But then they will say, oh, but we have to finish the textbook and we don't have time for that in class. And we have only 3 periods of English per week and each one is only 50 minutes. We don't have time. I said, just take 10 minutes of however much time you have every single English class and do some listening and give the students a link so they can practice at home. It's not being done. That's why. If they fix that, everything would change, I'm sure.
So it goes down to listening
Listening and then speaking.
and speaking. You had something that you called the echo method.
The
Is
echo
that
method.
related
That's
to
right.
definitely
Yes,
to that?
absolutely. So I found that in my teaching, I'd identified that pronunciation was this big black hole. It was this big blind spot that basically nobody was paying any attention to. And actually they looked down at it as something optional, you know, it doesn't matter. Oh, you know, there's a lot of different English accents. You've got British, you've got American. So what does it matter as long as they can understand me? But the thing is, as long as they can understand me means they may have to work really, really hard to understand you. Like, you go with sisters, see movie yesterday. Excuse me? I have to think a long time before I figure out what you meant to say. And you are saying, well, you understood me. No, I had to put it together. And that's in my TED Talk. So if you haven't seen the TED Talk, you can have it demonstrated there. Mark Zuckerberg spoke in perfect Chinese grammar because he'd memorized his script. But his tones were so poor.
Yeah.
I asked my students what their reaction was, and they said, first of all, I'm impressed that he made the effort. That's true. Number 2 is, I can't understand him. Number 3 was anger. You are wasting my time. I don't want to spend my time trying to figure out what you're saying when you won't make the effort to speak more clearly. So when you get to the point of anger, you know something is not being done right. So with my students, I found that they had similar pronunciation problems to Mark Zuckerberg's Chinese problems. So whenever I played that for them, they knew immediately what the point was. It wasn't about Chinese, it was about their English. And ever since Mark Zuckerberg, and I honestly thank him from the bottom of my heart for that speech, my students have never argued against teaching pronunciation. They said, I don't want to be a Taiwanese Mark Zuckerberg.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and listen to that. But it goes back to what you were saying. Is it that important in terms of the tones and that? Because, you know, you mentioned what the last thing that you mentioned was about the convenience store or convenience store. Because I also find out that, you know, when it comes to making speeches and in acting even, there's certain tones that want you to end at a lower tone rather than the uplift tone.
Right.
Does it really...
Okay.
What is the most important reason? Because, I mean, you just mentioned, okay, people can't understand what Zuckerberg said.
That's a pretty good reason right there.
But in English-wise, if somebody, the sentence that you just said, even though it was like a different tone, you could understand, you know, with some work. But what's the really important thing about having correct tones?
I will give 2 answers. Number 1 is, where's the smoking room? Number 2 is, where's the smoking room?
Yeah.
Those are 2 totally different things. A smoking room is a place where you smoke. A smoking room is a room on fire. It could be life and death.
That's true.
It could be life and death. So the convenience store thing we'll get by. We'll just think you're overexcited. Where's the convenience store? You know, what are you so excited about? But very often the meaning is completely different. Okay, how about dancing shoes versus dancing shoes? That's like Disney. The meaning changes just in this particular example of compound noun stress. But in addition, if someone has to use a lot of effort to understand you, the next time they see you on the street, they go, oh, hi, let's come over and have a chat. Are you going to be really excited to go chat with them if you have to work so hard to understand them?
Yeah, that example is interesting because I understand what they're saying. Hi, let's go have a chat.
That one's okay, but if you sit down and talk, you're going to have this poor grammar, pronunciation that you have to unravel in your head. It takes a lot of mental energy. Our mental energy for each day is limited. When it's gone, it's gone. You either have to sleep or you have to eat or both. You eat, you sleep, and then you get energy again. Otherwise, your energy for the day is gone. So if you've had this long chat with someone who's very hard to understand, and then you have to go to work and concentrate on writing an abstract or something like that, you've already used up your primetime energy. So you are stealing energy from other people when you don't care about your pronunciation.
It's interesting because my sister and I just had a little communication about this because, you know, they send me a lot of things. I wasn't born here. I mean, I was born here, but I didn't grow up here. And I came back 10 years ago now. But my mother language, in my point of view, is not Chinese. And so they tend to forget that I'm not fluent in Mandarin. And even though it's getting better, so they'll send me a lot of things like forms or PDF files or, big old long stuff about such and such. And they wonder why I don't know everything that's going on in there.
Yeah.
And, one of my sister told me, there's oftentimes we think that you read it, but then we find out that you never even really did. And basically I told her is that I think they forget that I'm not been living here my whole life, and that it takes so much energy
That's right.
for me
That's
to
right.
translate it in Chinese. And especially if it's not something I can copy and paste and put
Right.
into Google Translate, I gotta,
Right.
take an extra process that I just, unless it's super, super important.
That's right.
I won't bother to
It's
read
exhausting.
that. Yes, it's really, really exhausting.
And that's why pronunciation is important. It's the same thing with sound.
Totally makes sense then.
Yes.
So with that, this is something that you're passionate about in terms that, you have a startup that you're working on right now. And is it dealing with all of this?
I don't know if all of it, but since I found that niche, I've noticed that everybody has pretty much predictable problems. Almost everybody. A few people, if they spent time in the States, they might have better pronunciation, but they may still have some blind spots themselves. So I realized that if I organized this knowledge, I could help everybody whose mother tongue is Chinese, not just in Taiwan, also in the mainland, Southeast Asia, wherever there are Chinese speakers. They pretty much have similar problems. Now, in some dialects, you have slightly different problems. So, for example, Cantonese with number and lumber, they have problems with L and N. So they'll have particular problems, but the basic problems are pretty much the same if your native language, or if you are very good at Chinese. So I realized that I could organize this and then try to make it as accessible as possible, as easy to learn as possible, and share it with a larger audience. Because every year I have maybe, say, 100 some new students. That's all the students I can try to influence. And some of them will go on to teach, so they will in turn influence others, but you can't predict that. So I can only reach a small number of people. And my belief is that improving your pronunciation, making it easy for the other person to understand you, making it comfortable to listen to you talk, it's going to make you immediately much better able to connect. And the one thing we humans love and desire and crave in this life is connection.
Yeah.
That's the one thing we really, really want. You think you want all these other wonderful things, riches or food or blah, 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 even romance. What you want is connection.
Yeah.
And you really can't connect if you're struggling to understand someone. So I believe that by helping as many people as are interested as possible to improve their pronunciation, I can help them improve their quality of life. That is why it motivates me.
Yeah, because a few years ago, I remember you're talking about an app that you're working on.
Yes.
So this is the same.
Yes. So because of that, I would talk about it sometimes with my students. My hope that I could actually organize this knowledge, and then I could create a startup around it, and then get the knowledge out to more people. So one time after phonetics class, I was chatting with one of my really outstanding students. I mean, she's A+ all the way through. And I said, I really would like to make this into a business. And her eyes sparkled. She said, I do too.
Wow.
Ever since that sparkle of Melissa's eyes, we've been kind of working on this. She says, yeah, I wanted to, so we started working together. She's one of my all-time best students, and I've had some really outstanding students. I have a few others, but man, she's right, like way at the top. But the important thing is she had the same passion. She said, I've tried a lot of other things. Her major wasn't even foreign languages. It was 农业经济, 农经.
Oh, so that's
something
for
else.
our English speakers. It's
that
for
was agricultural economics. Agricultural economics. But this, she found she had a passion for it, so we started working together. And so we are collaborators now. She brought a German husband back from Europe when she went to my university, Leiden, and he is a programmer. So he is doing the coding.
See, things happen for certain reasons at certain times, you know.
Comes
It's
together.
not a coincidence. Yeah,
Oh,
it's
yes.
amazing.
And so I have finished the content of the app, but we are now just putting it together. We're doing the recordings, and we're going to be doing the coding. Hopefully it will be out sometime this year, finally.
What specifically does this app do?
It's called EarBug.
EarBug.
EarBug, yes.
Oh,
And
EarBug or
yeah, not
EarBug?
EarBug, it's EarBug.
EarBug. Okay, okay, yeah.
So it's basically an ear training app. A lot of my students, when they saw the words, the written words, B-I-T, B-I-D, B-E-A-T, and B-E-A-D, all these 4 words, they would all say them beat. It was beat,
The
beat.
same.
You can hear it in the talk if you go to the TED Talk. So if I said beat, they wouldn't know which one I meant. However, with this app, you have the 4 words in front of you and you hear beat. You have to choose the correct one, B-E-A-T. And then you click on B-I-T, try again.
Oh.
So it's gamified. It gives you feedback if you got it wrong, but won't make you feel too frustrated. You got it right. B-E-A-D, no, try again. B-E-A-T, go on to the next one.
So it's the voice speaking out of the app. They have to choose which one is right.
That's right.
Now, how does that help their own pronunciation then?
Because they know, first of all, we're working on them being able to recognize what you're hearing. If you're hearing beat, you may think it's bit. So a little beat or a little bit, which one is it?
Yeah,
They probably think it's a
yeah.
little bit, but I was saying a little beat, And so the first thing is that they need to be able to understand what people are actually saying, because they misunderstand often without knowing it. They have no idea, because maybe the same thing makes sense in that context, but it's not what people are saying. There are a lot of bad words, like going to the beach, put a small it in there, and then it's not a nice word. And they were doing that without knowing that. And even other words that are maybe not so serious, like one of my examples was bucks, but it was B-O-X. And I said, does bucks make you think of anything?
Bucks, like deer or money?
Yeah.
Or, yeah.
But the first thing I thought of was buxom, which is phone.
Oh.
And I thought, that is not something you want in people's heads when you're talking about a box. So you have to, if you're saying bucks, I'm thinking of buxom. No, it's not a common word, but it's what my brain came up with. So people are going to have all kinds of associations trying to guess what you meant. It's going to distract them. So they're probably going to miss your content because they're still trying to figure out what the heck you were trying to say.
Yeah.
So once you can recognize the correct word when you hear it, your ears will get very sharper. So bit, bid, beat, bead. And they said, gosh, when you play them all next to each other, they're very different. I said, sounds, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
They are very different, but when you learn them, because your teacher probably, excuse me, teachers, I know you work really hard. The teacher did not have good pronunciation and they did not correct people's pronunciation. They end up thinking they're all beat.
Yeah, yeah.
So once you find out bit, the it is really short. Bid, the it is still a short it, but D is voiced. So the it becomes longer because before a voiced sound, a vowel gets longer. Bit, bid, bit, bid. They go, oh my goodness, why didn't anybody tell me that? Okay, the next one is not the same vowel at all. From it, our tongue goes up to E, beat. Beat, bit, beat, bit. You can feel your tongue moving. It's a different vowel. In addition, our common example that we use to teach that is, do you have the E sound in Chinese? E or sound? E, of course you have E. Do you have the I sound in Chinese? If you're in the army, when you're marching, you don't say E-R, E-R. You say I. So when you're in the army, you learn that E has a special pronunciation I. And that is the English short I.
Right. Okay. So you have all these ways that they can relate to exactly what it is, the tone or the sound that you're trying to get them to learn.
So you asked what the theme of my teaching is. That's probably it right there.
Wow.
Because if you know immediately from something you already know what the new thing is, you learn quickly and without stress, because you're not trying to memorize something that you think is really not necessary. Like it and E, people understand you anyway. If you have the attitude and you just have tests which make you miserable, you don't have any motivation. But when you find out, oh, it's so easy, we have that in Chinese. They learn it on the spot. It is not 辛苦. It's not difficult at all.
Right, right.
So I have done that with just about everything, including grammar. There are a lot of places where English grammar and Chinese, they correspond closely, but it's never taught. For example, people say Chinese doesn't have tense. Tense is expressed. Chinese doesn't have the. Chinese expresses the. For example, 一本书 is a book.
Yeah.
So 那本书 is that book. It's very emphatic.
Yeah.
But how about the book? How do you express the book?
Isn't in the tone of how you say it?
Partly, but that's not the biggest way we do it. So for example, 我有一本书 new topic. 你讲的那本书在哪里 emphatic.
Yeah.
哦，书在那边。
Yeah.
书 has
so you
nothing.
Yeah, there's no
There's nothing, so that's a zero marker. When you don't put anything in front of it or after it, that is the. You express the in Chinese. 书在哪里？鞋子在哪里？ Those shoes that I was talking to you about, where are they? 鞋子在哪里? You know which 鞋子 I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You don't need to put anything in front of it. That is the.
Yeah.
Where are the shoes?
Yeah.
So there are many things that correspond very closely. You do express definiteness in Chinese, but the schools don't teach it. So I've collected a whole collection of stuff like this. You will learn on the spot. Once my students understand that putting nothing there is actually has information, then they're fine. Yeah, same with tense. There's a lot
there's
of
like Chinese, there's like measure words for every single thing, you know. It can be, you know, 条, one thing that is long. There can be like a lot of different ways to say 条. Oh, you can say 一根一条.
That's right.
And that's always confusing to me.
Yeah.
But my thing that I want to ask is, you know, when I speak, obviously when you speak Chinese, that people expect you to have an accent, a slight accent, even though your accent is still pretty good. Now, when it comes to somebody like me, when I'm speaking Chinese, and I have the accent, the foreign accent or something like that, and I think I remember reading something that you had said or heard something you had said about, does it depend on the mother language that you have, that you are not able to necessarily have the right pronunciation? Because now I feel like my English is my mother tongue. So the sounds that are in English is not the same sounds that are in Chinese oftentimes. But this is kind of like the opposite of what you're saying. So for me, I think, and I worked very hard to try to regulate and try to Belgian, make it standard, but still people can hear it.
That's right.
So how is that?
I do have one comment on that. One thing is the echo method, which you mentioned earlier. That can help. You can get really good with the echo method.
Yeah, I try to watch movies and things like that or something.
We'll come back to that, but what you said, I have a Canadian Chinese background friend. So he's a heritage Chinese, not really speaker. He didn't really learn a lot of Chinese when he was, his situation is really similar to yours. His background is Taishan, and he grew up in Canada. And so his Mandarin also has an accent, but he looks Chinese.
Yeah.
And so he told me that he often gets yelled at and insulted for not speaking better Chinese. He says, for you, you're a foreigner, you know, you're okay, you can have an accent.
Oh, you said one word. Oh, yay.
Yes,
you know?
exactly, that's it. And he said, if he gets the tones wrong, makes a mistake, he gets yelled at, scolded. Why don't you speak better Chinese? You should be ashamed. And that's really hard on him.
Yeah. My situation is I start speaking English, so then they know, okay, I'm not from there. English. But
I've heard this from many ethnic Chinese. They've had the same experience. So they have totally different expectations. They think you should sound like a perfect native speaker of Chinese. For us, it doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing is also is that Taiwanese, Taiwan Mandarin, and China Mandarin is different. There's different, different words for certain things. There's different expressions and things like that. And so for me, when I'm thinking, oh, I'm kind of speaking pretty, standard.
Yeah.
Like, no, we know that you're not from Taiwan because you, not only just the accent, but just like maybe the words that I speak, which is kind of, okay. But yeah,
Yep. It just sounds a lot like my neighbor. It's very discouraging because people are not kind when they're saying those things.
yeah. But the thing that you're saying is that really for me to be able to have that standard accent is to always repeatedly listen to that particular thing. Like I just mentioned earlier that I try to watch movies and shows to improve my Mandarin. But then a lot of the shows that I watch are from mainland China.
Okay.
So that's a different I feel that Taiwanese or Taiwan Mandarin, because I learned Chinese in Pinyin, I didn't learn it in Bopomo 4. So people tell me that Bopomo 4 is much more accurate in terms of sounding.
Nope.
Okay, so to me,
They're
I'm
the
thinking...
same. They're the same.
But to me, I feel like in Taiwan, the Mandarin there is lazy compared to what I've learned. For example, Shan is S-H-A-N, which means mountain. But then in Taiwan, I hear people say san. And so and then when people tell me, oh, my accent, I should say such and such this. But in another situation, they're using that same expression or same word said in that way without the other words. And I'm wrong because maybe it's the context. Chinese is every much as complicated as I always heard that it was, learning it from coming in, not growing up and learning it.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. And in fact, if you compare Pinyin and Bopomofo, they're the same. They're the same.
Are they?
One is not better or more accurate than the other. And Taiwan Mandarin is not lazy Mandarin. It's simply Southern Mandarin. That's all.
Okay.
If you go to China, the southern provinces, especially Fujian and elsewhere, they speak Mandarin just like people do in Taiwan. If you go to Fujian, they're not going to say, 你上哪儿去啊? They're not going to do that. They're going to speak pretty much like they speak here. So Taiwan is not so special. The only thing is that there are a lot of political correctness issues involved. That's another thing. It's not lazy. It's just, it happens to be another variety, a southern variety of Mandarin. Most people don't come from Beijing. So everywhere they're going to have their own local variety. So when you hear people say that, they expect you to know the textbook pronunciation, but when you're speaking casually, to use a more relaxed Taiwan pronunciation. So you kind of have to master two varieties here.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, at the bottom of the line, the bottom line is I guess it's the same then as the U.S., which has so many different accents
exactly
and things like
the same.
that. Yeah.
That's right. So as for the echo method, it isn't just listening to a lot, which is great. You should listen to a lot. And it's not just listening and repeating. There is a key difference between the echo method and listen and repeat that a lot of people don't get. There's another method which is called shadowing. And a lot of people refer to the echo method as shadowing, and it is not shadowing. So listen and repeat, we all know. So for example, go put the book away. Go put the book away. All right. So you just go put the book away, go put the book away. You do it right after. But the trouble is, when you're just giving the students a model sentence, go put the book, by the time I get to book, look at my face. This is what happens. Do you notice anything?
Yeah.
So go put the book, and I can see my student's face.
Yeah, they're not listening to the rest of the sentence.
Right.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
So they grab the first part of the sentence, and something kicks in called performance anxiety, which you know well, I think, from your acting career. Performance anxiety means I'm worried about repeating that correctly. So before you're even done giving me the model, I'm rehearsing in my head.
Yeah.
Eyes go up to the upper right-hand part of the room, like this, and your lips start moving because you are actually rehearsing in your head.
Yeah.
And like you say, you're not listening when you're rehearsing. That is brain noise.
Yeah.
So,
That's funny.
I know.
Exactly when I was in Shanghai, I would tell my staff, I would tell them something, but they'd be, thinking something else because they done exactly like what you said. They think they understand by listening to the first part of my sentence or what I'm saying, but they don't listen to the back part. And so I have to tell them literally,
Grab them and
listen
say.
to everything, the whole thing I say before you reply or
That's
before,
right.
yeah.
That's right. And so in the end, that's why it's a listening problem. People are not in the habit of listening. And you will see this expressed in the culture in a very common way in both Taiwan and in the mainland. So whenever you watch a TV show or a movie in Chinese, what do you see at the bottom of the screen?
Yeah, the subtitles.
That's right. Which has a really, really good function because children learn to read generally pretty early. They learn Chinese characters before they learn bopomofo. I know that because I brought up my two plus a third child from China.
Yeah.
So just by watching subtitles and looking at the signs when you're driving down Roosevelt Road, they already know a lot of characters. And characters are easier to learn than bopomofo because bopomofo is much more abstract. And you have to bring them together. So the, an, ban, that's a process. Your brain has to put two things together and make a new word with the correct tone.
Yeah.
But just an, you learn it really fast. It's just one thing in one chunk, one syllable.
Right.
So Chinese characters actually are much easier for children to learn at the beginning. It was my experience with both my kids. So what happens is that you have this idea as a Chinese speaker that the Chinese language really is the writing. You think that's the real essence of Chinese is the writing. You have so many dialects, so many different kinds of pronunciation. But if you have the character, everybody knows what you mean.
Right.
In addition, besides learning the characters faster than a phonetic system, even faster than we do with ABC, we decode slower. I am convinced. I've watched it. When we are reading English, we read English slower than a native Chinese reads Chinese. They can read faster. Now, I don't care what laboratory studies have found. I have observed this in so many people. I know pretty much this for a fact. We have some fast readers in English, but not as many as you have in Chinese who can read fast. So if you ask any Chinese person, would you rather absorb new information by reading it or by listening to it? What will they say?
Reading it.
Always by reading.
It's
100%.
each word is like only one character.
That's right. That's right. And it gets decoded immediately. You don't have to go through this collocation of, phonetics of vowels and consonants, putting them together. You see it immediately and you move on. And you do it in units of 2. So Pinyin will be together as one unit. And you just see it and you jump on to the next one. So Chinese, basically, if they are educated, if they are literate, which most are now, especially in Taiwan, the literacy rate is above 98%. So just about anybody will prefer getting new information in writing. It's solid. If they forgot something, they can come back and check. But if you miss it when it's going by, or if somebody's speaking fast or sloppy, it's gone. And it takes too long because saying the words in sound in real time takes longer than it takes your eyes to read it. So I have found that 100% of my students, except for ones who grew up in the States or their English is outstanding, they all say they prefer reading. And because of that, Chinese brains become, not because they're different in any way physically, but you have been trained to rely on the written word and when you're in a hurry, you go to the written word. You don't listen very well.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
So just like the people you were talking about, they don't listen very well.
Yeah.
They think they had it. Nah, I'm not going to listen to the rest.
Yeah.
That is 普遍. That's just about everywhere you find Chinese speakers. In my experience, okay, my experience is limited, but that's what I've observed.
You've been teaching though for how many years? 30-something years with dealing with linguistics in this.
So people do not have the habit of listening, but they do have performance anxiety because, number one, in class they go like this so they won't get called on. But if they do get called on, then the anxiety kicks in and they're not listening. They're just getting ready to perform.
Yeah.
And when you get ready to perform without listening, you're just going to use existing resources which are not correct. You're just going to use the old pronunciations from junior high school, which were probably not very good. So that means when you say it, I say, go put the book away. Go put the book away. It doesn't sound anything.
It's like they've learned it by reading it, sort of.
Yeah, they heard half of what I said, so they know what the sentence is, and then they're just kind of bringing out old resources and doing it the way they do out of habit. It's just habit.
Yeah.
So that's why I developed the echo method. So go put the book away. Don't move your lips. You're not allowed to go like this. You can't look somewhere else because that means you're thinking. Your brain is, the wheels are turning. You can't move your lips because you're rehearsing. Keep your lips just completely motionless. Keep your eyes where they are. Wherever they are, don't move them. Go put the book away. Go put the book away. In that very quiet pause, you heard my voice repeat it the way I originally said it. It wasn't repeated, it was replayed. It was like a recording device. It just played back what your brain picked up because our brains have something called echoic memory. Now we have visual memory. We see an image, we can still see it a couple seconds later. We have auditory memory, which only lasts about 5 seconds. So if we've heard something, it plays back automatically in our head. Like if you hear something crash, you hear 2 crashes. The second time it's crashing in your head.
Yeah.
The same thing with language. So go put the book away. You heard my voice. That wasn't your voice, however you say it, which is obviously correct.
In my brain, now that you brought it up, I heard it
me.
in my brain. Okay.
So assuming that your English isn't good, which it is, but we'll leave that aside for now, you're just going to copy exactly what you heard because your brain has internalized what it heard.
Right.
内化了, that means it's already a part of you, so it just has to output it again.
Yeah.
Go put the book away. Go put the book away.
Yeah.
Because you've already internalized it, and you internalized it the way I said it, not the way you used to think it was supposed to be said. That's why it's so powerful. Otherwise, people are not listening. They can practice 500 times, and they will go put the book away.
So when are you planning on launching the app?
In a couple months.
In a couple of months. Okay, because
if all goes well.
A long process.
Oh, it's been in the works for a very, very long time. I don't want to say how long, but it's been a long time. But the thing is, it's on my bucket list. I have to do it before I leave this world, so it will get done. However long it takes, I don't care if you laugh at me for it, whatever. We're just going to get it out because I have to get this stuff out of me before I go. We're all going to go.
If you think about it, how many tones and how many examples and how many pronunciations that you have to deal with, that's a lot in the English language.
But actually, we're just starting now with vowels and consonants because a lot of Taiwanese, a lot of Chinese speakers, they really, really have trouble with the vowels. Their vowels are all wrong.
Yeah.
So in order to do that, this will first train your ears. You can get the vowels right. Once you fix your vowels, we'll go on to some consonant problems, which can be a problem too. So if you go through the whole thing, we'll cover all of the sounds of American English. We're just doing American, not British, but if you know good American English, you'll be perfectly understood anywhere in the world.
Right.
Yeah. So even Brits, they hear so much American, not a problem. So first of all, get the vowels and consonants in order. We will be going on to other apps and other courses. Oh, in addition, my collaborator, Melissa, she has already created a short video mini course of English vowels. So she will teach what's going on. If, the app, you have questions, go through the course. That should solve probably most of them.
Wow.
In the future, we have other plans. I don't want to share them right now. That's still in the works.
You heard it first on Old Asian Lady No.
That's right.
Anyway.
Okay. Where you can practice the other things. And there are a lot of complex intonations. But once you've mastered the echo method, you can imitate them without learning a lot of theory. You just imitate what you hear.
Right.
So, for example, let's try this. A Taiwanese is reading a sentence and says, "The chair is broken." Do you have any pictures in your head? Maybe a broken chair. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, here is the same sentence from a textbook publisher, like Cambridge, Oxford, one of those. "The chair is broken." Does that give you a lot of mental images?
Well, I think both of them gives me different thinking. I don't know if for each one of them, I imagine a chair broken. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes. Okay. Let's give you another example. Sharon, the chair is broken. Now, do you have something in your head?
Oh, yeah, because based on your tone, of how
tell
you
me
said
what you have in your head now.
Well, there's definitely something that you're not happy about.
That's
that
number
the chair is
one.
broken.
Right. What's the situation probably?
You did something that you weren't supposed to have done, possibly,
Yeah,
or that
that's one
chair
thing.
was important to you.
That's right. What else might have happened? Okay, those are fine. So you know that somebody's unhappy about something.
Yeah.
And it has to do with that chair being broken.
Yeah.
So the image that came up in my mind when I first said it and heard it was everybody's at a party and everybody has a chair except me. And so I'm just standing there feeling sorry for myself. There's no place to sit. And so I'm, oh, so sorry. Here's a chair for you. And I look at it, I go, the chair is broken. You want me to sit on that?
Right.
That was the story that my head just completely automatically came up with because the intonation tells you. So if you are echoing, you will not say the chair is broken. You'll say the chair is broken. And then people will know exactly what happened.
Yeah, but the thing is, when people are learning English, until they get really, really super familiar with it, it's just with learning any language, I guess, that they're able to put more of the meaning or the sounding of what the meaning is, whether it's they're happy or upset, right?
I understand what you're saying, but I find that emotions are universal. Intonation, to some extent, is universal. It doesn't matter what your native language is. You could come from Papua New Guinea or from someone else, or from somewhere else. The chair is broken. Just looking at my face and my mouth, you know what's going on. And even if they don't know English, they will probably figure out what's going on. So when you're learning a language, the chair is broken is not that helpful. It's good to know what the very basic pronunciation is, but you need to have the sentence in a specific situation to know how to say it correctly, and you know that from acting.
Yeah.
So the thing is, because emotion is universal, and it's not just humans, if you have a dog or cat, they have pretty much the same emotion processing ability as a human. So a dog will also know right away something's wrong, someone's not happy.
By your tone.
The dog will know. So 何况, of course, all the more true of people, we know immediately. So if you are just a learner and you know the words, the vocabulary words, the chair is broken, they're all very easy. And then if you hear it in that tone, you echo it. The chair is broken. You will produce it perfectly. And you will also know what's going on because you're human.
Right. So maybe, your app, does it give examples of like different emotions when they're speaking that same particular sentence to help them
EarBug right now is focused on vowels and consonants. Future projects will come back to that because you have to take things one step at a time.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
So this comes to, I wanted to ask you about this because Taiwan government put out this English in 2030 policy.
Yeah.
What do you think the feasibility of that is? Because right now it's already 2026. 2025.
Yeah.
Do you think that's reachable, or what things? Well, first of all, do you think it's reachable?
I get the feeling most of us have the same view of it.
In 2030, right.
Most of us have the same view of it, and especially the people in my bubble. All of them are totally against it, the way they're doing it, because they're missing the one key element. And I went to the 教育部. They had a special committee for making decisions about and managing this policy. So I was invited to attend. I went to several of these meetings under 3 different ministers of education. They kept changing for a while.
Yeah.
And at the end of each one, I gave them a presentation with slides, with PowerPoint and everything. Is 谢谢石老师，参考参考. All of them said the same thing. Right. That's right.
Yeah.
So the problem is that people don't listen. They were not listening at the meeting either.
Yeah.
So if you try to tell the people who are making the policy what you need for it to succeed, they are not listening.
Yep.
Because the answer is the students need to listen, but everybody is missing that skill. Self-referential.
Yeah.
That's what's happening. And unless they put listening in, some teachers are trying really hard because a lot of them were not originally English teachers, like they're teaching math or whatever. They're expected to give the class in English or partly in English. This is kind of unreasonable when even the English teachers have trouble speaking colloquial English.
Yeah.
So because you have not given the teachers the chance to upgrade their skills or taught them a method, and nobody was told the whole thing is listening, and you don't have a good model for them necessarily, and the students, like you said, in your experience, some students understand zero. They understand nothing. How are you going to deal with both math and not understanding English? Math is already very, very tough for students. I know I brought up 3 kids actually through the system. You need to have full attention and understanding to learn math well, especially once you get like 5th grade and beyond.
Yeah.
Even the parents start having trouble. So why are you going to make their learning harder at another subject that they're probably failing? Makes no sense. So that's as much as I can say about this. From start to finish, the one thing that's missing is listening. Unless we learn how to put in good listening, quality listening, I don't think anything is going to work very well.
And that really means restructuring the whole system pretty much.
Well, in the sense that it's built around the tests. If it were not built around the tests, but it were built around success in the classroom, and they got somebody like you in to have the students act out skits, and they would get good feedback and good grades based on their interest, how much they engage, on their improvement over time, how much fun they have, then it would be different.
Yeah. That's the thing. People don't listen. Also, I feel like in Taiwan, English is such an important thing. I mean, parents pay tons of money for their kids to learn English. But the quality of teachers that speak English, I mean, I met somebody who was a bushiban teacher. She was from Japan. She only went to school in Australia for 2 years, but the basic sentence that out of the things that we were talking about, she didn't even understand that. And that's not including all the different accents that there are from teachers or people that they hire as teachers all over the place. So I don't know how that, could be helped either, because the listening part, if it was implemented, how much would it go down? It would be the schools, the colleges, but everything else.
Starting from the first year of English, every single English class, every single period that they teach English, they have 10 minutes of focused listening practice. Like I said, it is an online file, an audio file, or one that they can copy and take home, and they can access it at home and then practice it there and make it into skits. They come back and perform in class. You can do that with 10 minutes in each hour of English. That can be done. As long as you are not forcing people to get through a textbook that is probably not very practical for the sake of the tests, which make everybody miserable and which force you to forget everything as soon as the test is over. It's like your English learning career has ended then. Instead, it's something you're having fun with your classmates, acting stuff out, and then you're saying things the way a native English speaker would say them. Of course, we could do it. You wouldn't have to completely change everything, but you would need teachers who have the method and who have good enough English. If the teacher's English is not good enough, they can use the files for a model. Just rely, there's endless resources available online.
Right. Wow, so 2030. We'll see.
I'm looking more tomorrow. Let's start tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. So the last thing before we go then is that we always come to this part, which I call the wow. And that's words of wisdom. So would you have a wow of yours that you would like to share?
Actually, it's probably included in the interview so far, but it is listen. Learn to listen. Talk less, listen more, listen carefully, listen deeply, and don't be too quick to respond, because there may be something at the end that you didn't listen for that changes the whole thing. In Chinese, the point of the sentence comes at the end. It's yesterday, because I was in a real hurry and it was getting kind of late and I had to get the kids to school. I forgot to bring your book. So if you don't listen to the end, you miss the whole point. So listen carefully, be patient, listen to the end, think, let it echo in your head for a while before you respond, and listen more, speak less.
So I think it's probably like, just be present.
Yes, absolutely.
In that particular moment. That way you can do whatever it is that you just mentioned.
Totally agree.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure.
And thank you for joining us on this episode of Old Asian Lady. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.